Morning, everyone. It is October. Welcome to October, Thursday, October 1st. Time to take a break with Drake, America's Bible teacher. We're looking out over the streets of Waitsburg, the two streets of Waitsburg. And here's Drake in Corinth.
Am I in Corinth?
You're in Corinth again, hun.
That reminds me of, like, what is it when someone is given a supervisor? They've just finished a program and they have to check in with their supervisor.
Oh, like a
Warden?
probation?
Probation officer.
Probation officer.
This one guy, he was a prominent actor in England, and he's given a probation officer. This doesn't pertain to today.
It probably doesn't, yeah, but hey,
But
you're
he's
telling
given
a
a
story.
probation officer as he's coming through rehab and stuff, and one time he lapses and goes for a walk in the night and gets lost. He's not supposed to be out, and he calls his probation officer from a phone booth in England, and he says, "Can you tell me where I am?" So, wife tells me I'm in Corinth. I go, "Oh, I am? I'm in Corinth?
Yeah, you're in Corinth.
How did I get to Corinth?"
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah. Anyhow.
So, yeah, I have a couple. Yeah, we were a little late. I had several things I had to reset and redo, and it's been just...
It happens electronically. Yes. We're in 2 Corinthians chapter 8, and Paul is encouraging generosity among the believers, and the doctrines that Paul lays out here has led to the trillions of dollars that have been given to missions and charity and missionaries. It's the giving that's financed the churches. This doctrine that he lays out here is why the churches of Europe were so beautiful and powerful and immense and had such tremendous effect. This is very pivotal. It's very pivotal what Paul is teaching today. The impetus that it comes out of, though, you need to understand this. Remember the Passion of the Christ, 2004. By the way, the Resurrection of the Christ is in pre-production. I don't think they're filming yet, but it's coming. And
it is coming.
And it will be Jim Caviezel again. Interesting. He's going to film the Resurrection 18 years after they filmed the Passion. So he comes back from the dead, and then that filming is going to be 18 years later. But Jim still looks really good. So I think it's going to work. It's not going to be like, dude, you're old. It's not going to happen.
You don't think? Yeah.
Anyhow, he does the Passion of the Christ, and he's filming in Italy, some town, Maria del something. And they've used this for biblical filming scenes before. It's really a fascinating town. And while he's filming there, the hubbub is building back in Hollywood. Oh, he's doing a Jesus movie. Blah, 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 blah.
What do you mean? The first time he was in the Passion?
In the Passion of the Christ,
okay.
yeah.
I thought you were talking about now.
Mel Gibson in 2004, for the 2004 release, he came back in 2003 to do post-production. He came back, and the town just hated him because of what he was doing. There's a lot of Jewish influence in Hollywood. It's been that way since after World War II. And it's almost like, how would you feel if you came home to your town and all the stop signs say your name is Jimmy, and all the stop signs were changed from stop to Stop Jimmy, and all the yield signs were now read, We hate Jimmy. That's what Mel Gibson came home to. in Hollywood after he filmed. People were trashing his movie. They hadn't even seen it. They thought, oh, it's anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic? Where do you get this? Christians are the most supportive of Jewish things, but it's spillover from other stuff that had happened in Europe, that the Cossacks had done, that the Nazis had done. The Nazis claimed they were Christians. Well, they may have been raised that way, but it had nothing to do with Jesus. The Holocaust had nothing to do with Jesus. He wasn't behind it. It was people that followed Christians that followed Jesus that stopped the Holocaust. But anyhow, the truth always isn't the issue on this earth like we wish it was. But Mel Gibson knew what it was to be ostracized. And other people have taken a stand for Christ in Hollywood. They know what it is to be ostracized from the big contracts. They know. You got to decide what you're going to do if you work in Hollywood. It's not a real cordial.
Well, there's a lot more independent films now.
Yeah.
That are faith-based that were not around, and I think The Passion was really influential in making that somewhat acceptable.
Yeah. Because it made money.
Yeah, it made money, and then all of a sudden people are like, "What? What did we miss?" So.
Yeah. And Hollywood executives did go to Mel Gibson and they said, do more. Do more, we'll distribute it. I mean, he broke through something there. And there's a lot of faith-based stuff, so it's amazing. But anyhow, the Christians in Jerusalem were a growing lot. And the Sanhedrin, the book of John just says, the Jews. He was from Galilee. And so he would just say, the Jews. They didn't all hate Christians. The Sanhedrin, the Pharisees, the scribes, they were really angry about the Christians because in their mind, hey, you're cutting into our offering flow. The offerings was a gravy train, baby, and we're living fat. And now people are filtering off and joining this the way thing. And so they were concerned, and so they ostracized them. And it was kind of tough for the young church, Christians in the young church. They were cut out of deals. There was a business distribution system center, and they were like, "Oh, you haven't been to temple? Why? I got no problem with temple, but yeah, but you're one of those people of the way." They called it the way, and Jesus said, "I am the way." They called it the way, and they cut them out of things. And the Christians in Jerusalem were struggling. So Paul passes the hat. Honey, can you put up the third missionary journey?
Of course.
And do you see those regions around there?
Yeah.
Is it an isolated trail, or is it mushed in with all four?
No, it's just the third.
It's the third missionary journey.
Yeah.
Now, he's late in the third missionary journey now. He's been out for several years, and it's, like we've said this, when he writes 2 Corinthians, it's 57 AD, it's springtime, and he's coming down into Corinth. Mm-hmm. So he sends him a letter, then he goes. By the way, Titus is sent ahead too to take the letter there, so it got there before he did. And as we're in chapter 8 today, he's talking about the giving. And look in, if you see it in 8:10, 2 Corinthians chapter 8, verse 10, it says, "Here is my advice about what is best for you in this matter. Last year, you were the first, Corinthians, you were the first not only to give, but also to have the desire to do so." The Corinthians, it was a sailor town. Stuff came through. And, when you live near a shipping line, it's like having a communication device, which everybody has today, including grammar school kids that probably shouldn't have them. But they learned in Corinth, whoa, the Jerusalem church is suffering. Well, hey, let's pass the hat. The Corinthian church, it hit them first. I think, wow. Hey, these people were a selfish church. not long ago, and now they're just massively giving. And I hope I can get to this thing about how their feasts and their offerings and their services were totally transformed because Paul had taught them. It's amazing, but Paul had passed the hat. And do you see these regions? Macedonia.
Oh, you may put I took the map down for a second,
Okay.
but I'll put it back up. Macedonia,
so Paul
we see it.
gathers this offering, and it started a year prior in 56 AD, and people in Corinth were gathering a kitty to give to the Jerusalem church. People were around Macedonia, that area north of there, Achaia, and people even in Galatia, they say Galatia, it's not S-H-A, it's Galatia,
It's kind of tilted sideways near Iconium, Lystra, Antioch, and so
people from there were giving to this. They'd heard, and they're giving to this thing. So this pot is sort of like at late in It's a Wonderful Life, where George Bailey is $8,000 in debt to some misplaced money. Potter knows all about it. He doesn't care. They go into stress, and people just start coming over. And while they're singing "Hark the Herald Angels Sing," they give a pile of money to George Bailey. It's the happiest scene. And this is happening for the church in Jerusalem. And the people who are giving are getting exhilarated. Can you imagine this pile of money that's amassing? And Paul's how do you take this to Jerusalem? It's not
there's no wire transfer.
It's not a wire transfer. You don't compress it all to a check.
Yeah.
And I love this one. It was a black church. You can pull this off at a black church. You can't do this at a white church. But the pastor says, and we're going to give to this situation, whatever the gaffering was. He says, and I don't want to hear ting, ting, ting. That means money's landing. He says, there'll only be bills. And if you're dropping bills in there, I can't hear the money. I can't hear the paper. So don't give coins. It's too much bulk.
Yeah.
You can pull that off.
Leave room for the bills.
You pull that off at a black church. You do it at a white church, if you can use those phrases anymore. They'll go, oh, what you're saying is offensive. You're saying I'm not giving enough. You're disturbing my quietus, and you're in my space. Oh, come on. I like what this black pastor said. And when you do some giving, make sure there's some zeros on the bills. So they're
on your checks. Add a few zeros.
So, but this started a giving cycle. And we're talking to people in Europe and Asia Minor, and the churches historically, the Hagia Sophia that got built here, the churches that were built north of here in Germany and in France. Oh my goodness, this spread to England, and England continued with amazing giving once the gospel reached there. They continued with amazing giving. They really took this stuff, and the churches throughout England, and the wealth that England amassed, because they were just a giving people. And one of our chancellors, he says, when you let go of what's in your hand, God lets go of what's in His. You're actually planting seeds when you're giving to the kingdom of God. And it comes back to you many times over. It's just an interesting thing. And Europe stayed on this path until in the late 1800s, Europe started dabbling with secularism, started reading Nietzsche and Freud and Jung, and they really took Darwin to heart. Not a good thing. Not a good change, not a good direction. And in 2 generations, so that happened in the late 1800s. In the 1900s, Europe gets trashed and smashed and bashed and ashed.
Wow, yeah.
Don't get off the path.
Hey, Keith Hill's saying good morning. Good morning, Keith. We've been I covered the comments. Sorry about that, but
who's with us, dear? Hello.
Keith Hill.
Keith Hill.
Yeah.
Yay. So, anyhow, but this giving, and they say, oh, the churches are struggling now in America. You know why? You know what happened in the early 1900s in America? We thought, oh yeah, Europe's got a good thing going on here. There was a bill that was thrown out of Congress in 1902. And they said, well, why do you got to do this? You don't need to tell fish to swim. It was fish shall swim and dogs shall run and bark. You don't need to make laws about this. This just
there
happens.
Must have been something tucked at the very, very end.
You know what this bill was in 1902? It was laughed out of Congress. Oh, come on. The bill was that cumulative taxes, city, county, state, federal, excise, tax. You look at the list of taxes today, it's insane. We have an election coming up in a month, and one of them wants to raise taxes through the roof, and one wants to continue to cut taxes. You have a choice to make about this, but this bill was thrown out in 1902, and the bill was that cumulative taxes shall not go above 2%. And the congressman, mostly Christians in the room, said, we don't need to make a bill like that. Americans will never put up with their cumulative taxes going above 2%. This is 118 years ago. So the bill wasn't passed, and we don't need to do that. Americans will put their foot down, but the wars came in, and then FDR came in and started massive government programs and taxes.
War is definitely a tax raiser.
And the people that want to raise taxes think, well, the government should have all the surplus here because the government knows how to administer and help the poor. Every poor community that the government helps gets poorer while they spend massive amounts of money in helping this community. It makes it worse. Somebody, LBJ says, we're going to start the war on poverty. Churches do this way better than the government does. And it ends up not even being a war. You just help people out of a tough spot, and you assess their life, and you go, oh, here's where all the loss is. Government doesn't do that. They find a hole in a boat, and they continue loading cargo on that boat, bailing the boat, loading. It's a cycle of that and it wastes trillions of dollars. I think something like 23 or 24 trillion has been spent on helping poor people since 1965, and it's made people more poor. It didn't war on poverty, it expanded poverty. It spread poverty. I didn't, but my father talked to a man who just retired after working an entire career in the welfare department of Los Angeles County. And the guy was like, and my dad says, what are you so bummed? He says, you know something? The week I retired, I saw some books that maybe I shouldn't have seen. But I found out, and this is a fact, for every dollar that goes to help the poor, we're going to help the poor, the poor, the poor. For every dollar that goes to the poor, $131 is spent administrating that dollar. Not even 1% of what's gathered for the poor reaches the poor. It gets into the hands of the administrators, and they get mahogany desks. It gets into the hands of administrators, and they get lavish limo rides and lunches and Learjet things to go to conferences, and they all stay at the finest and finest, and it doesn't reach the poor.
So what's your solution, Drake?
It says here in 2 Corinthians 8 and 9, it says that your giving should be voluntary. Taxes aren't voluntary. Taxes are taken at gunpoint. If you don't pay your taxes, you go to prison. It should be voluntary. It should be proportionate. It should be systematic. There's a system to it, and there should be honest accounting. And those that handle this must be people that are true and honest. That's how Paul says charity is to be done. And the poor are dealt with. The problems in society are dealt with when they're in the hands of the churches. And now if Christians are not taxed 40, 50, 60, whatever percent, Scandinavian countries that have a Christian heritage, they're taxed 85%. And the government controls the churches. You do real dynamic ministry, they'll shut you down. Paul's system is so much better than the government's here in 2 Corinthians 8. And I think it goes into it there's more of it in chapter 9. And as people give to this issue here where the Jerusalem Christians are suffering, the problem gets solved. It's fascinating how this works. Now, we got something coming on here where the Romans storm in, a little more than a decade later, and the diaspora goes on, and the Jews were scattered throughout the world until 1948. But anyhow,
which is an amazing story to be a scattered people that return to their homeland.
Yeah,
and also just in other times in history where they have been taken to exile and returned to their homeland.
Yeah.
Other times.
So it's rather amazing. So this is just Paul. Generosity is encouraged. That's the title of chapter 8, and then in the middle of chapter 9, he encourages them to give and give generously. Be a giving people. There's something that verse 13, it says, "Our desire is not that others might be relieved while you are hard pressed." It's not like, their life's getting easier and yours getting harder. I don't care. Keep giving. That's not what happens. Something miraculous happens when you give because God just covers you. But that there might be equality. And that word's getting twisted today. At the present time, your plenty will supply what they need, so that in turn their plenty will supply what you need. Then there will be equality. He's talking to the church in Corinth. And the issue he's talking to there is they just learned about Christ. They thought, wow, this is great. Then they would have Last Suppers. And it was a massive feast. And the wealthy in Corinth brought amazing roasts and all kinds. And the poor they had a few dried carrots to bring. And they would stratify them. Well, you sit over here. You just brought a few dried carrots, so we'll throw you a little bit of chipped squirrel to chew on and some, jerky from a gopher. And Paul said, hey, whoa, stop this. You share. God doesn't love you more than he loves you because you're a land baron, or you understand accounting, or you understand finance, and you don't. Just because someone doesn't, I have a doctorate. I don't know how to balance a checkbook. Does that mean I don't deserve any breakfast? Not the issue. These poor people, they have gifts in other areas. So when you come together, share the whole feast. That's what he's talking about. When you got people touting equality today, words don't mean what they mean.
Yeah. Well, their potlucks were, you're out of luck if you didn't bring a big pot.
Yeah. No kidding.
Instead of a pot bless, which is what it's supposed to be.
Yeah. There's a reason the chubby kid on your Little League team is called tiny. The opposite word is used to them. People that talk about equality today, we get told this by athletes who are making
More than the average salary.
They're making
Quite more
some
than
of
the
them
average
are making
salary.
$1,000 a minute while they're playing.
Not only that, but have a platform. So there's like a double whammy there.
Yeah. So and they're getting used. And I read one of these athletes that talks about equality and fairness. So and so just settled his new contract for $74 million, and he's preaching equality. And he's not helping the community that he grew up in.
Well, some of them are, but at the same time, it's.
Hey.
But still.
So when Paul talks about sharing in equality, he means it.
Yeah.
And we need to hear this. And giving changes everything. It really does. People that give to a school or give to a church or give to a project. I administered hundreds of thousands of dollars when I was overseeing this massive mission system that our college ministry, and 450 kids ended up going overseas or on a big mission project, and to watch the kids fundraise, and they would do car washes and bake sales and have all kinds of little ditties. And there was one guy, he thought, well, okay, it's going to be $800 to go on this mission. If I this and that, maybe I can dead it in. I hear him calculating, and I thought, I knew this guy. I knew where his church was, his home church. It was 100 and something miles away. I knew the pastor there. I called him. I said, hey, Pastor John, Benny's going on this thing, and he's going to lead worship in this deal. It's about 3,000, 4,000 miles away from here. I explained the whole thing. Took me about 4 minutes, and I said, can you kick in toward his 800? He says, I'll pay the whole thing. This guy was going to go to work and, make $6 an hour or something, and hundreds of hours. And it took me 4 minutes to explain it to a guy who believed in him, who led his parents to Christ and saw this kid grow up. And he said, 800, 4 minutes took me to explain to him. Of course, I called him. I said, hey, Benny, I talked to your pastor. Yeah, what happened? He's paying the whole thing for you. Wow! I saw this happen so many times. It's giving. Yeah. My wife and I are in a grocery store, and there's this sweet lady behind us. She could just afford a couple items, and she's like, oh, man, looking through her coin purse. I'm not sure. I said, honey, I grabbed the little gray divider. I picked it up, and I just put it on the side. I says, we're paying for your groceries today. She squealed. As she got a tear in her eye. I just wanted to hug her. We were in New York. You don't hug people in New York.
Yeah, that's for sure.
It was, guys, giving. Giving. Be giving people. God says the gifts will be returned to you 100-fold. That's 10,000% interest rate. Nobody pays that.
Yeah.
God does.
Yes, He does.
Be a generous and be a giving people. And I went over again.
You sure did. That's okay.
Yeah. And I'll just tell you, don't say, oh, he's asking for money. I'm not asking for money. I'm just telling you, if you would like to give to what we're doing here, we're doing a lot for the Lord. If you would like to help this, put wind in sails, put some water in our line, or however you want to look at it, we do very good things with this. We're working on some Christian projects right now, and there's just a cost to it, and we waste no money. We lavish nothing. We have a 20-year-old car. We're in a borrowed rental right now. Yeah, seriously, we're not asking you to help us pay for our third Learjet. We're not doing that. So if you want to give, and my wife knows how to tell you what that is. So, but anyhow, it is Thursday. It's October already. Harvest is upon us. And,
Oktoberfest
and
fun.
Wrapping up. But the Lord bless you. May the Lord keep you. May the Lord make his face shine upon you. The Lord lift up his countenance and look you straight in the eye. That's what that means. And may the Lord give you peace. Be well.